sure you even exist? Right now, you think you're looking at a screen, reading these words, choosing whether to keep watching or not. But here's the truth that will haunt you. Your brain decided 7 seconds ago. The self you've trusted your entire life. It's an illusion manufactured by your brain. The reality you see? Not real. Just a draft your brain redraws every millisecond. For the next 3 hours, science will shatter everything you thought was certain, and you won't be able to sleep tonight. This isn't entertainment. This is a journey into your own mind where the line between real and illusion dissolves. Hit subscribe now, because after you learn this truth, you'll need someone to walk this path with you. Close your eyes and press your finger against your arm. You feel pressure. You feel warmth. You feel something. Now, here's the question that has haunted philosophers and neuroscientists for centuries. Why does it feel like anything at all? Science can map every neuron firing in your brain. It can trace the exact pathway of pain signals traveling from your finger to your cortex. It can show you, in vivid detail, the electrochemical cascade that happens when you see the color red. But it cannot tell you why red looks red. It cannot explain why pain hurts. This is what philosopher David Chalmers calls the hard problem of consciousness. And it's the most fundamental mystery in all of science. Not quantum mechanics, not dark matter. This. Chalmers divides the study of consciousness into 2 categories: the easy problems and the hard problem. The easy problems aren't actually easy. They're just theoretically solvable. How does the brain process information? How do we distinguish different sensory inputs? How does memory work? These are incredibly complex questions, but they're easy because we can imagine, in principle, how to answer them with enough research and technology. The hard problem is different. The hard problem asks, why is there subjective experience at all? Think about it this way. You could build a robot with sensors that detect wavelengths of light. You could program it to say, that's red when it detects light at 700 nanometers. You could make it react to damage with avoidance behaviors, just like you pull your hand from a hot stove. But would the robot see red? Would it feel pain? Or would it just be processing information in the dark with no inner experience, no what it's like to be that robot? This is called the philosophical zombie thought experiment. Imagine a being physically identical to you, neuron for neuron, but with no consciousness, no inner life. The lights are on, but nobody's home. It behaves exactly like you. Talks, laughs, cries, but feels nothing. Could such a thing exist? And if not, why not? What is it about the arrangement of matter in your brain that creates the miracle of experience? We don't know. Nobody knows. You can scan a brain and see which areas light up when someone sees red. You can measure the exact frequency of neural oscillations during conscious versus unconscious states. You can even predict what someone is seeing based purely on their brain activity. But none of that explains the redness of red, the painfulness of pain, the you-ness of you. Some scientists think consciousness is an emergent property, something that arises when information processing reaches a certain level of complexity. Others think it might be fundamental to the universe itself, like space or time or gravity. Some believe it's quantum mechanical. Some think it's computational. Some think it's an illusion that doesn't need explaining because it doesn't really exist. But here's what's certain. Right now, you are conscious. You are having an experience. You are reading these words, and something is happening inside your mind that is more than just neurons firing. You might doubt everything else in the universe. You might question whether the external world exists, whether other people are conscious, whether you're in a simulation or a dream. But you cannot doubt your own consciousness. As Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." The one thing you know with absolute certainty is that you are experiencing something. And yet, this one undeniable fact, the only thing you're truly sure of, is the one thing science cannot explain. Your consciousness is the most real thing in your world. It's the lens through which everything else is known. Without it, the universe might as well not exist, at least not for you. But what is it? Where does it come from? Why does the universe need witnesses? We don't have answers. We barely have theories. After thousands of years of philosophy and decades of neuroscience, consciousness remains the last great frontier. The final mystery. You are conscious right now. You are aware of being aware. And nobody, not the greatest scientists, not the most advanced AI, can tell you why. That's the hard problem. And it's where our journey begins. You feel like a unified, continuous you, don't you? A single person living behind your eyes, making decisions, experiencing life. The main character of your story. What if I told you that you don't exist? Not in the way you think. The sense of being a coherent self, a singular entity piloting your body, is a magnificent illusion created by your brain. And the evidence is disturbing. Let me show you what I mean. In 2002, a team of Swiss neuroscientists was studying epilepsy patients. They were using electrical stimulation to map brain regions before surgery. When they stimulated a specific area called the temporoparietal junction, something bizarre happened. The patient suddenly became convinced that someone was standing behind her. She could sense a shadow person mimicking her movements. When she sat up, the presence sat up. When she leaned forward, it leaned forward. There was no one there. But her brain had conjured a presence so vivid, so real, that she was terrified. The researchers didn't create something new. They simply disrupted the brain's process of creating the sense of self. And in doing so, they accidentally created a second self. Your brain is constantly working to maintain the illusion of a unified you. It integrates sensory information, memories, and internal states into a coherent narrative. It tells you, I am one person, continuous through time, separate from everything else. But that unity is fragile. Disrupt the right circuits, and it falls apart. Consider dissociative identity disorder, previously called multiple personality disorder. Patients with DID have distinct identities, separate people with different memories, behaviors, even physiological responses. One identity might be allergic to a food that another identity eats without problem. How is this possible? Because you were never one thing to begin with. You are a temporary coalition of neural processes that feel unified. In DID, that coalition fragments into competing factions, each believing it's the real person. But the most compelling evidence comes from split-brain patients. In severe epilepsy cases, surgeons sometimes cut the corpus callosum, the bundle of nerves connecting your brain's two hemispheres. This stops seizures from spreading. But it also creates something shocking: two separate consciousnesses in one skull. The experiments are haunting. Show the word walk to only the right hemisphere, and the patient stands up and starts walking. Ask why, and they can't tell you, because language is in the left hemisphere, which didn't see the command. So the left hemisphere makes up a reason. I wanted to get a drink, it says. A complete fabrication. Show the left hemisphere a chicken claw and the right hemisphere a snowy scene. Ask the patient to point to related images. The left hand, controlled by the right hemisphere, points to a shovel. The right hand points to a chicken. Ask why they chose the shovel, and the verbal left hemisphere says, "Oh, you need a shovel to clean out the chicken coop." The left hemisphere had no idea why the hand chose the shovel, but it instantly created a plausible story. It confabulated, made up a narrative to explain an action it didn't understand. This is called the interpreter module. And here's the terrifying part. It's working in you right now. Your left hemisphere is constantly creating stories about why you do what you do. But most of your actions are driven by unconscious processes. Your conscious mind is just narrating a story after the fact, pretending it was in control all along. You are not the author of your actions. You are the narrator reading from a script you didn't write. Split-brain patients show us something profound. The unified self is a construction. Cut the connection between hemispheres, and you literally have two minds with different goals, different preferences, sometimes even fighting for control. One patient reported his left hand trying to strangle him while his right hand fought it off. Which one was him? Both? Neither? The answer is unsettling. There never was a him. Just systems collaborating to create the illusion of one. Your brain generates the feeling of I to create coherence in a chaotic system. It's evolutionarily useful. A unified commander makes faster decisions than a committee. But that commander is a puppet, a spokesperson for unconscious processes you'll never meet. When you feel like you are making a decision, you're not wrong exactly. Something in your skull is deciding. But that something is not a single, indivisible self. It's a temporary alliance of competing systems, all pretending to be one person. The self is not the CEO of your mind. It's the press secretary, taking credit for decisions made in closed-door meetings it wasn't invited to. You are not the pilot. You are the passenger reading the flight plan after takeoff. And the most disturbing part? You'll never feel it. The illusion is so perfect, so seamless, that even knowing it's an illusion doesn't dispel it. Right now, you still feel like you. That feeling will persist until the day you die. But it was never real. It was just your brain's most beautiful lie. Think of a number between 1 and 10. Don't overthink it. Just pick one. Got it? Good. Now answer this. Did you choose that number? Or did your brain choose it, and you just witnessed the choice? If you think that's a strange question, you're about to have your entire conception of free will shattered. In the 1980s, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet conducted an experiment that would haunt philosophy for decades. He asked subjects to perform a simple task: flex their wrist whenever they felt like it. Just a spontaneous movement whenever the urge struck. Subjects watched a clock and noted the exact moment they felt the conscious intention to move. Meanwhile, Libet monitored their brain activity with EEG electrodes. The results were shocking. Brain activity spiked 550 milliseconds before subjects reported feeling the urge to move. More than half a second before they decided, Their brains had already initiated the action. The conscious decision was an afterthought, a narrator describing a choice already made. But it gets worse. In 2008, neuroscientist John Dylan Haynes repeated the experiment with modern fMRI scanners. He asked subjects to press a button with either their left or right hand, their choice, whenever they wanted. The fMRI could predict which hand they would choose up to 7 seconds before they were aware of making a decision. 7 seconds. Think about that. For 7 seconds, your brain has already committed to an action, assembled the motor commands, made the choice, and you have no idea. You're still sitting there, thinking you're freely deciding, while your unconscious mind has already cast the vote. The decision you eventually feel isn't a decision at all. It's a notification. An email from your brain saying, FYI, we're doing this now. This is called the readiness potential. A gradual build-up of neural activity that precedes voluntary action. It appears before you're aware of wanting to act. It suggests that consciousness doesn't initiate action, it observes it. So, who's driving? If you aren't making decisions, what is? The answer appears to be unconscious neural processes shaped by genetics, past experiences, environmental factors, neurochemistry, and random noise. A deterministic cascade that feels like choice, but might just be inevitability playing out. Some neuroscientists argue there's still room for free will. Maybe consciousness doesn't initiate action, but it can veto it. A free won't instead of free will. In the 200 milliseconds between readiness potential and action, you might be able to stop yourself. But even that veto comes from somewhere. From neurons firing in patterns determined by prior causes. You didn't choose your brain structure. You didn't choose your childhood. You didn't choose the neurochemical state you're in right now. If every choice emerges from prior states you didn't control, is any choice truly free? Philosopher Sam Harris puts it bluntly. You are not the author of your thoughts. They simply arise in consciousness. You don't know what you're going to think next until you think it. Try this experiment. Don't think about a white bear. Right now. Just don't. Did you succeed? Of course not. The thought appeared anyway. You didn't choose it. It arose unbidden, and you could only watch it happen. Now think of your next sentence before you say it. Can you? Can you really choose your words before they appear in consciousness? Or do they just arrive? Every thought, every urge, every decision bubbles up from the darkness of the unconscious. You experience them as yours, but you don't create them. They're given to you by a process you don't control and can't observe. You are a spectator in your own life, convinced you're the director. This has profound implications. If free will is an illusion, can we really hold people responsible for their actions? Should we punish criminals for choices they didn't truly make? The entire concept of moral responsibility seems to crumble. But here's the paradox. Even if free will is an illusion, you can't stop believing in it. Try going through your day thinking, I'm not choosing any of this. It's all just happening. You can't. The illusion is too powerful. And maybe that's the point. Maybe consciousness evolved not to make decisions, but to create the feeling of agency, to make you believe you're in control, so you stay motivated, engaged, planning for a future you think you can shape. The puppet believes it's pulling its own strings. And that belief keeps the show running. Right now, you think you're choosing whether to keep reading. But that decision was made before you were aware of it. Your eyes are scanning these words because unconscious processes determined it was worthwhile. Your conscious mind is just along for the ride, narrating a journey it didn't plan. You didn't choose to be born. You didn't choose your genes, your upbringing, your neural architecture. You didn't choose the thoughts that arise in your mind right now. So, what did you choose? Maybe nothing. Maybe you are just the story your brain tells itself about actions it was always going to take. The readiness potential is rising. The decision is already made. You just haven't been informed yet. Right now, you're not doing anything. Well, you're reading. But you're also doing something else, something you don't even notice. You're thinking about yourself. Close your eyes for a moment. Let your mind wander. Within seconds, you'll find yourself thinking about the past, planning the future, imagining conversations, replaying embarrassing moments, worrying about tomorrow. This isn't random. It's a specific brain network activating, and it's the machinery that generates your sense of self. It's called the default mode network, or DMN, and it might be the closest thing to a physical location for you. The DMN is a collection of brain regions that activate when you're not focused on the external world. When you're daydreaming, reflecting, remembering, imagining. When you're just being you. It includes the medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior cingulate cortex, the precuneus, and parts of the temporal lobe. Together, they create the narrative of self, the constant internal monologue, the sense that there's a you experiencing life. Neuroscientist Marcus Rachel discovered it accidentally in the early 2000s. He was studying brain activity during tasks, and he kept finding that certain regions were more active when people were doing nothing, when they were supposed to be at rest. At first, he thought it was noise, but it wasn't. It was a consistent pattern across thousands of subjects. The brain has a default mode, and that mode is thinking about yourself. The DMN is where your sense of identity lives. It generates the story of you, who you are, what you've done, what you want, how others see you. It's constantly running in the background, maintaining the illusion of continuity. But here's where it gets interesting. Turn off the DMN and you disappear. Experienced meditators show decreased DMN activity when in deep meditation. And they consistently report the same thing, a sense of ego death. The boundaries between self and world dissolve. There's awareness, but no I that's aware. Just awareness itself. The same thing happens with psychedelics. Psilocybin, LSD, and DMT all suppress DMN activity. Users describe becoming one with the universe, losing all sense of individual identity, experiencing consciousness without self. It's not that consciousness disappears. It's that the narrator disappears. The voice in your head that says, "I am experiencing this," goes silent. And what remains is pure experience without an experiencer. This suggests something profound. The self is not fundamental to consciousness. It's an add-on, a feature the brain creates for organizational purposes. But like all features, it can malfunction. When the DMN is overactive, you get the opposite problem. Instead of losing yourself, you become trapped in yourself. Rumination, obsessive self-focus, constant inner dialogue that won't shut up. This is seen in depression and anxiety. Studies show that depressed patients have hyperactive DMNs. They can't stop thinking about themselves, their failures, their inadequacy, their hopeless future. the you becomes a prison, a voice that narrates everything in the worst possible light, a narrator who hates its own story. Treatments that work for depression, therapy, meditation, even ketamine, all reduce DMN activity. They quiet the self. They give patients a break from being themselves, which raises an unsettling question. If your sense of self is just a brain network that can be turned up or down, is you even a fixed thing? Or are you more like a radio station, sometimes broadcasting loudly, sometimes barely audible, sometimes off the air entirely? Consider this. Every night when you fall into deep sleep, your DMN goes quiet. Your sense of self vanishes. For hours, there is no you, just a body maintaining itself in darkness. And you don't even know it's gone until you wake up and it turns back on. You spend a third of your life without a self. And it doesn't bother you at all, because when the narrator is silent, there's no one to notice its absence. The DMN also explains something strange about memory. You don't remember what happened. You remember yourself experiencing what happened. The DMN doesn't just recall events, it reconstructs them with you as the protagonist. That's why your memories feel like they're about you. Why you remember not just facts, but how you felt, what you thought. The DMN writes you into every memory, even memories from a time when you were functionally a different person. The 3-year-old in your earliest memory isn't really you. They had a different brain, different thoughts, different cells, but the DMN retroactively claims them. That was me. I remember. Your autobiography is a story written by a narrator who wasn't present for most of it, about a character who keeps changing but claims to have stayed the same. The DMN is a storyteller, and like all storytellers, it takes liberties with the truth. So, what are you, really? Are you the DMN? The stories it tells? The awareness that exists when it goes silent? Maybe you aren't a thing at all. Maybe you're a process, a pattern, a temporary configuration of neurons that generates the feeling of being someone. A flame isn't a thing. It's a process of combustion. It feels solid, continuous, but it's just oxygen and fuel creating light and heat. Every moment, different molecules are burning. The flame is never the same flame twice. Maybe you're the same, not a noun, but a verb, not a being, but a happening. The default mode network is the machinery that creates the narrator. But the narrator isn't you. It's a character in a story your brain is telling itself. And when the story ends each night in sleep, when the DMN goes dark, something interesting happens. Nothing bothers you, because there's no you to be bothered. The self is a program, and like all programs, it can be debugged, modified, or shut down entirely. The question isn't, who are you? The question is, are you sure you need to be anyone at all? You're at the dentist. The drill whirs. Your jaw aches. 45 minutes of pure misery. Then it's over. The dentist smiles. All done. Relief floods through you. Later, someone asks, "How was it?" You say, "Not too bad, actually." Wait, what? You just suffered for 45 minutes. But because it ended well, you remember it as not too bad. Who's lying? The you who suffered or the you who's remembering? Answer, neither. They're both you, just different versions. Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman identified this split. He calls them the experiencing self and the remembering self. They want completely different things. The experiencing self lives in the present. It feels pain now, joy now. It exists for about 3 seconds at a time, then vanishes. Over a lifetime, you have 600 million of these 3-second moments. But the experiencing self has no voice. It doesn't make decisions. The remembering self does. It writes your life story. And it doesn't care about total happiness or suffering. It only remembers 2 things: the peak moment and the ending. Kahneman proved this brutally. Subjects put their hands in painfully cold water for 60 seconds. Later, they did it again, but for 90 seconds, with the last 30 being slightly less cold. Which would they repeat? Most chose the longer one. Why? Because it ended better. Their remembering self ignored 30 extra seconds of pain. The ending was less awful, so the memory was less awful. Your experiencing self screams, "Why choose more pain?" But it has no power. The remembering self writes the story, and in stories, endings matter more than duration. Then there's the narrative self, the voice that says, "I'm the kind of person who..." It's your constructed identity. The narrative self is the most delusional. It believes you're consistent, rational, coherent. It filters everything to maintain its story. Think you're brave? You'll remember risks you took, forget times you chickened out. Think you're kind? You'll reinterpret selfish moments as justified. The narrative self is a propaganda minister, constantly rewriting history. These 3 selves are always fighting. You eat the cake, experiencing self wins. You regret it, remembering self judges. You tell yourself, "I'm not usually like this." Narrative self protects its story. You stay in a miserable relationship because the narrative self says, "I'm loyal." You quit a good job because the experiencing self is bored. You avoid opportunities because the remembering self recalls one failure. Which one is the real you? All of them. None of them. You are not one person having an experience. You are 3 entities pretending to be one, each with different goals and none in charge. You are a committee pretending to be a dictator, and the committee members hate each other. Every cell in your body gets replaced. Skin cells, every 2 weeks. Blood cells, every 4 months. Skeleton, every 10 years. But your brain? Surely that's constant. That's where you live. Wrong. Your brain is changing right now, this very second. Every thought strengthens or weakens synaptic connections. Every memory you recall gets rewritten. Every emotion reshapes neural pathways. You are being rebuilt constantly, neuron by neuron. The you reading this sentence is not the you who started this paragraph. This is the ship of Theseus paradox. The ancient Greeks asked, "Replace every plank of a ship, one by one. Is it still the same ship? You have virtually no atoms in common with the baby you were. Your cells have been replaced, your neural connections rewired, your memories rewritten, your personality shifted. Are you still you? Or a ship that's forgotten what it looked like in harbor?" Here's where it gets darker. Every time you remember something, you change it. Memory isn't a video recording. It's a reconstruction. Your brain rebuilds memories from fragments and adds new information, current emotions, unconscious biases. You remember your childhood birthday party, but do you remember the party, or the last time you remembered remembering it? Each recall is a photocopy of a photocopy. The original is gone. Researchers proved this by implanting false memories. With suggestive questions, 25% of subjects remembered being lost in a mall as children, an event that never happened. They described it in detail. They told you how they felt. The memory felt real, because real and false memories are identical, just neural patterns. Both feel true. your personality changes too. Studies tracking people across decades show this. Who you are at 20 predicts almost nothing about who you'll be at 60. Yet, at every age, you feel like you. The 60-year-old looks back at the 20-year-old and thinks, that was me. But was it? You share a name and a vague narrative thread. That's all. The 20-year-old had different beliefs, values, fears, dreams. If you met them today, would you even like them? You are not a person. You are a succession of people, each inheriting the previous one's life, each believing they've always been there. The philosopher Heraclitus said, "No man steps in the same river twice. It's not the same river, and he's not the same man. You are the river, always flowing, never the same. When you promise, 'I'll always love you,' which you is promising, which you will keep it. When you say, 'That's not who I am,' you're right. It's not who you are. It's who you were. 30 seconds ago, you were continuously dying and being reborn. 1,000,000 small deaths every day. The person you were yesterday is dead. The person you'll be tomorrow hasn't been born. The person you are right now, already fading. Stop reading. Notice the thoughts in your head. Where did they come from? You didn't choose them. They just appeared. You're not thinking thoughts. Thoughts are thinking themselves. You're just watching. But here's the disturbing part. Are they even your thoughts? Your brain isn't unified. It's competing modules, each with its own agenda. One wants to eat, another wants sleep, another wants approval. They generate competing impulses. The you that emerges is whichever coalition wins. You don't have thoughts. You host them. But it gets stranger. Many thoughts aren't even generated by you. They're copied from others. Mirror neurons fire when you act and when you watch someone else act. Your brain simulates what others do, feel, think. This is empathy, but it's also thought contagion. Spend an hour with an anxious friend. You become anxious. Watch a confident speaker. You sit straighter. Scroll social media. Your opinions shift toward what you're seeing. You think your beliefs are yours. But how many did you generate independently? How many did you inherit from parents, absorb from culture, copy from friends? You're not thinking, you're echoing. Language makes it worse. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Language shapes thought. You can't think thoughts your language lacks words for. English speakers see time as linear, past, present, future. Speakers of Aymara see the past as in front, visible, and future behind, invisible. Same brains, different languages, different thoughts. Who's thinking your thoughts? You? Or the language that colonized your brain before you could consent? Then there are false memories. Elizabeth Loftus showed people footage of a car accident. Later she asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed versus when they hit? The smashed group estimated higher speeds. A week later, they remembered seeing broken glass, though none existed in the video. One word changed their memory. Their brain invented details. Now they'd swear they saw it. You remember your childhood. But how much is real? How much was suggested by family stories, photos? How much did your brain invent to fill gaps? You don't remember your past. You remember the story your brain constructed. And that story changes every time you tell it. Your thoughts aren't authored by you. They're a collage. Snippets from forgotten conversations. Cultural narratives absorbed unconsciously. Neural patterns from ancestors dead for millennia. Emotional states triggered by gut bacteria. You're not the thinker. You're the screen on which thoughts are projected. Philosopher David Hume. I never catch myself without a perception. I am nothing but a bundle of perceptions. You're not a thinker with thoughts. You're thoughts, temporarily organized, pretending to be a thinker. The voice in your head? It's not yours. It's a speaker playing borrowed recordings. And you can't turn it off, because there's no you separate from the thoughts. You are the thoughts, and the thoughts are not yours. You're driving home from work. You pull into the driveway. Then you realize you don't remember the drive. Not a single turn, stoplight, or lane change. You were on autopilot, unconscious, except you weren't. Your eyes were open. You navigated traffic. You made hundreds of decisions. Your brain worked perfectly. You just weren't conscious of it. This is the truth. Most of what you do unconsciously. Neuroscientists estimate 95% of brain activity is unconscious. Your conscious mind processes 40 bits of information per second. Your unconscious? 11 million bits per second. You're aware of a tiny fraction. The rest happens in darkness. And the unconscious runs the show. Think about walking. You're not controlling each muscle. Not thinking, contract quadricep, release hamstring. You decide to walk. The unconscious executes. Same with breathing, blinking, posture, facial expressions. These aren't you doing them. They're being done by systems you don't control. But it's not just motor control. It's emotions, decisions, preferences, judgments, all largely unconscious. You meet someone and instantly feel you don't like them. You don't know why. Your unconscious detected micro-expressions, tone, body language, made a judgment. Then your conscious mind invents reasons. They seem arrogant. The decision was made. The explanation came later. Malcolm Gladwell calls this thin slicing, rapid cognition from minimal information. Your unconscious constantly evaluates, judges, decides, and doesn't tell you why. You walk into a room and feel uncomfortable. Don't know why. Maybe lighting triggers a memory. Maybe smell activates an association. Your unconscious knows. It's not sharing. Habits are entirely unconscious. You don't think, lift cup, bring to mouth, sip. You just do it. Neural pathways so reinforced the behavior is automatic. Studies show people make purchasing decisions unconsciously, then confabulate reasons. Brain scans show decision regions activating before subjects report awareness. They genuinely believe they chose rationally, but the choice was unconscious. Consciousness was just informed. You think you're the driver. You're not. You're the passenger. The driver doesn't give you the route. You just wake up at destinations and pretend you chose them. Freud was right about this. The unconscious is vast, powerful, hidden. It has motives, fears, desires your conscious mind never sees. You are not in control. You're a spokesperson explaining decisions made in meetings you weren't invited to. Nietzsche put it harshly. Consciousness is the last and latest development, hence also what is most unfinished and unstrong. Consciousness isn't your core. It's a late addition, a narrator, a PR officer. Its job isn't making decisions, but explaining them, creating the story that you're unified and rational. But you're not. You're a passenger in a car driven by the unconscious. And the unconscious doesn't explain where it's going. Most of your life happens without you. You're asleep at the wheel. The wheel turns itself. The scariest part? You'll never know what you don't know. The unconscious will never reveal itself, and you'll keep taking credit. Because that's what consciousness does. It watches what the unconscious does and says, Yes, I meant to do that. You're not the author. You're a narrator reading a book someone else is writing. You can't even see the pages before they're read. You are mostly unconscious. The conscious part, just along for the ride. What if you could be turned off with a small electrical current? In 2002, Swiss researchers prepared an epilepsy patient for surgery. They placed electrodes on her brain. When they stimulated the temporal parietal junction, something impossible happened. She gasped, "Someone is behind me." She could feel a presence, a shadow. When she sat up, it sat up. When she leaned forward, it leaned with her. No one was there, but her brain created one. The doctors accidentally generated a second self with a few millivolts. Move the electrodes slightly, adjust the current. The sense of self can be manipulated like a dimmer switch. Too little activity. You feel disconnected from your body. Too much. Multiple people inhabit your skull. Your sense of I is not a soul. It's not metaphysical, it's a signal pattern, and it can be hacked. Out-of-body experiences replicated in labs. By stimulating specific brain regions, researchers make people feel like they're floating above themselves. What mystics thought was spiritual awakening is just disrupted body mapping. The temporoparietal junction integrates sensory information to create unified bodily self. Disrupt it, the sense of being in your body vanishes. You feel elsewhere, watching yourself from outside. Epilepsy patients report this constantly. During seizures, they feel split in their body and watching from a distance. One patient, "I'm a puppet. Someone else pulls the strings." Which I is real? The one in the body? The one watching? Both? Neither? The answer, I is whichever pattern the brain currently generates. And that pattern can be changed, electrically, chemically, with focused thought. Anesthesia works by disrupting neural pathways. You don't go to sleep. You're erased. You cease to exist. Then the drug wears off. You come back. But are you the same you? How do you know? There's memory continuity, but memory is unreliable. The you before could be a different person than after. You'd never know. Deep brain stimulation alters personality. Parkinson's patients receive brain electrodes. It helps motor control, but it changes who they are. Some become impulsive, aggressive. A different person. One man. "I don't recognize myself." His wife agreed. "He's not the man I married." Same brain. Different electrical patterns. Different self. So, what are you? The electrical pattern? Then you're fragile as a power outage. Change the current. You becomes someone else. Or maybe there's no you at all. Just temporary electricity that feels like someone. Turn it off. Nothing is lost, because nothing was there. This is why what happens when you die is the wrong question. The right question. What's happening right now that makes you feel alive? Answer. Electrical signals. Nothing more. You are a pattern of electricity that became aware of itself. A signal thinking it's a being. A process feeling permanent. But patterns can be interrupted. Signals jammed. Processes ended. If you can be turned off with an electrode, a drug, a blow to the head, what are you? A thing that exists, or an experience happening. The self is not a soul in the brain. It's the brain's activity. And activity can be paused, altered, erased. You're not a being having an experience. You are the experience, mistaking itself for a being. If the electricity stops, so do you. No afterlife, no continuation, just the end of a pattern that briefly thought it was someone. The switch can be flipped, And when it is, you don't go anywhere, because you were never anywhere to begin with. Your left hand buttons your shirt. Your right hand unbuttons it. You're not joking. You're not in control. One hand has a goal. The other has a different goal. You're stuck between, watching them fight. This is alien hand syndrome, and it reveals you might have two separate minds sharing one body. In the 1960s, surgeons developed radical epilepsy treatment. Cut the corpus callosum, 200 million nerve fibers connecting brain hemispheres. It stopped seizures. But it created something unprecedented. Two separate consciousnesses in one skull. Psychologist Roger Sperry showed split-brain patients images to one hemisphere at a time. Show walk to the right hemisphere. Controls left body, can't speak. The patient stands and walks. Why did you stand? The patient doesn't know. The left hemisphere, the speaking one, didn't see the command, so it invents an answer. I wanted a drink. Completely fabricated, delivered with confidence. Show left hemisphere a chicken claw, right hemisphere snow. Ask the patient to point at related images. Right hand points to chicken. Left hand points to shovel. Why the shovel? The speaking left hemisphere has no idea. But it doesn't say, I don't know. It confabulates. You need a shovel to clean the chicken coop. Complete fiction. Created instantly. Believed completely. This is the interpreter module. Running in your brain right now. Constantly creating narratives to explain actions you didn't consciously choose. Split-brain patients show the truth. You're not one person. You're two systems, loosely coordinated, pretending to be one. In extreme cases, hemispheres have different preferences. One patient's right hemisphere wanted to be a draftsman. Left hemisphere wanted to be a race car driver. Which one was him? Another patient. His left hand tried hitting his wife while his right hand held it back. His hemispheres were fighting, and he, the conscious observer, was powerless. Some patients describe their left hand having a mind of its own. It grabs unwanted objects, unzips their pants in public, gestures obscenely. They can't stop it, because they don't control it. The right hemisphere does, and it's not consulting the left anymore. Each hemisphere processes differently. Left, verbal, analytical, optimistic. Right, spatial, holistic, skeptical. Normally, they communicate constantly. Cut the connection. They diverge. Show a disturbing image to the right hemisphere. Patient feels uneasy, but can't explain why. The talking left hemisphere didn't see it, but the right saw it and is reacting. This happens to you daily. You feel anxiety, sadness, irritation, don't know why. Because one brain part perceived something the conscious part didn't. Split-brain patients reveal what we all are, fragile coalitions of neural systems. In you, they're connected. The illusion holds. In split-brain patients, the connection is severed. The truth emerges. You are not one. You are two. Minimum. Possibly more. The you feeling unified, coherent, in control. That's just the left hemisphere talking. The spokesperson, the interpreter, narrating a story about a unified self that doesn't exist. Cut the connection. The self splits. Two minds, two goals, two experiences, both convinced they're the real person. Which one would be you? The one that speaks? The one that doesn't? Both? Neither? The answer is terrifying. There never was a you, just systems collaborating. When collaboration ends, so does the illusion. You are not a person. You are a committee. And the committee is lying to itself. If the self is an illusion, if the brain decides before you know, if two minds argue in your skull without your knowledge, the question isn't, who am I, anymore. The question is, am I even real? And if you are, why is everything you see, hear and touch not what it seems? Right now, you think you're seeing the world as it is. You're not. Your eyes are just cameras. They capture photons. That's it. They don't see anything. Your brain does. And your brain is lying to you. Look around the room. Everything seems clear, detailed, complete. But that's an illusion. Your eyes only see sharply in a tiny area called the fovea, about the size of your thumbnail at arm's length. Everything else is blurry. You don't notice because your brain fills in the gaps. It predicts what should be there based on memory and context. Then it shows you that prediction instead of reality. Here's proof. You have a blind spot in each eye where the optic nerve connects, a hole in your vision. Right now. You can't see it because your brain paints over it. It invents visual information to make the hole disappear. Try this. Close your right eye. Stare at a point on the wall. Hold your left thumb up at arm's length, slightly to the right of where you're staring. Move it slowly right. At some point, your thumb will vanish completely. That's your blind spot. But you never notice it in daily life. Your brain is constantly photoshopping reality. Optical illusions prove this. The famous dress. Some see white and gold, others blue and black. Same photons hitting everyone's eyes. Different brains making different guesses about lighting conditions. Different realities. The spinning dancer illusion. Some see her spinning clockwise, others counterclockwise. She's not actually spinning either way. She's an ambiguous silhouette. Your brain chooses a direction and commits to it. Two people look at the same image and see opposite motion. Your brain prioritizes consistency over accuracy. It wants the world to make sense more than it wants the world to be real. Color doesn't exist in the world. It's a construct. Wavelengths exist. Your brain translates them into red or blue. But those experiences are created internally. The universe has no color, only frequencies. Your brain colors them in like a child with crayons. Sound works the same way. Air pressure waves hit your eardrum. Your brain interprets them as music, voices, thunder. But music doesn't exist out there. It's a story your brain tells about vibrations. Even more disturbing, your brain edits time. Events happening now are processed and presented to consciousness 200 to 500 milliseconds later. You're always experiencing the past. The now you feel already happened half a second ago. But your brain hides this delay. It synchronizes sensory inputs that arrive at different speeds. Light travels faster than sound, but you see and hear things simultaneously. Your brain time shifts them to match. You don't perceive reality. You perceive a heavily edited, time-delayed reconstruction that your brain thinks will be useful. Reality is the rough draft. Your experience is the final edit. Neuroscientist Anil Seth calls perception controlled hallucination. Your brain hallucinates reality constantly. When hallucinations match sensory input, you call it perception. When they don't, you call it psychosis. But the process is the same. You're always hallucinating. Usually, your hallucinations just happen to align with what's out there. Here's the terrifying implication. You've never seen the real world. Ever. You've only seen your brain's best guess, a simulation, a rendering, and you have no way to compare it with the original. You don't see with your eyes. You see with your brain. And your brain doesn't show you truth. It shows you what it thinks you need to survive. The world you experience is not the world that exists. It's a user interface, a simplification. Reality dumbed down so your tiny conscious mind can navigate it. You've never left your skull. You're trapped inside, watching a screen your brain projects. And you call that screen the world. But it's not the world. It's just a story about the world, written by a brain that cares more about usefulness than truth. You think perception works like this. Light hits your eyes. Signals go to your brain. Your brain processes them. You see what's there. Wrong. It works backwards. Your brain predicts what it expects to see. Then it checks if incoming signals match the prediction. If they do, you see the prediction. If they don't, your brain updates and tries again. You're not perceiving reality. You're perceiving your brain's prediction of reality. This is called predictive coding, and it means 90% of perception is prediction. Only 10% is actual sensory input. You're hallucinating the world based on expectations. Sensory data just corrects the hallucination when it's wrong. Here's proof. The color 5 phenomenon. Show someone 2 dots, one after the other, in different locations and colors. Dot 1 is red, then it disappears. Dot 2 is green, appears slightly to the right. What do people see? A red dot moving to the right that changes to green midway. But that's impossible. The green dot didn't exist yet when the red dot was moving. The brain couldn't have known it would be green. Yet people clearly see the color change during motion. The brain is retroactively editing what you saw. It knows the second dot was green, so it inserts that information backwards into your experience. It rewrites the past to make a coherent story. Your brain doesn't passively receive reality, it actively constructs it. Every millisecond, your brain generates a simulation of the world. Then it runs that simulation and checks for errors. This is why expectations shape perception. If you expect to see a face, you'll see faces in clouds, toast, the moon. Your brain predicted face and found just enough data to confirm it. This is why placebos work. If you expect pain relief, your brain predicts less pain. And since pain is generated by the brain anyway, the prediction becomes reality. This is why eyewitness testimony is unreliable. You don't remember what you saw. You remember what your brain predicted you saw. 2 witnesses, same event, completely different memories. Because they had different predictions. The philosopher Immanuel Kant said we never experience things in themselves, only our mental representations of them. Neuroscience has proven him right. Reality in itself is unknowable. You only know your brain's simulation of reality, and that simulation is shaped by expectations, memories, emotions, culture, language. Change the prediction, change the reality, literally. Studies show that if you're told wine is expensive, you'll taste it as better. Brain scans confirm the pleasure centers activate more strongly. You're not pretending. You genuinely experience more pleasure. Because your brain predicted expensive, jitting good and generated that experience. You don't taste the wine. You taste your expectation of the wine. You don't see the world. You see your expectation of the world. Neuroscientist Anil Seth. We're all hallucinating all the time. When we agree about our hallucinations, we call it reality. Think about that. Consensus hallucination. That's what reality is. Your brain is a prediction engine wrapped in bone, floating in darkness, guessing what's outside based on faint electrical signals. It's never been outside, never touched reality directly, just inferred it from noisy data. And the simulation it generates, that's all you'll ever know. You're born inside the simulation. You'll die inside it. You've never left. You never will. The world you see is not out there. It's in here, between your ears, a convincing fake, a beautiful lie. Your brain invents reality every millisecond, and you believe it every time, because you have no choice. You're trapped inside your brain's predictions, and you can't exit the ride. The question isn't, do you see reality? The question is there even a reality to see? Or just an infinite regress of predictions predicting predictions? You'll never know. You're inside the machine that generates the only world you'll ever experience. And that machine is lying to you. Beautifully, constantly, forever. You think you're experiencing now. You're not. You're experiencing 500 milliseconds ago. Right now, this very moment is already gone by the time you become aware of it. Your consciousness is on a delay, a half second behind reality. Your brain needs time to process sensory information, integrate it, construct a coherent experience. That takes time. So by the time you're conscious of something, it's already in the past. You're watching a live broadcast on a delay, and you don't even know it. This is why magicians can fool you. They exploit the gap between reality and your awareness. The coin is already in their pocket before you realize it left their hand. The card is switched before you see the switch. Your consciousness arrives late to every moment. Reality has moved on. You're left holding the memory of what just happened, thinking it's happening now. Benjamin Libet proved this with his famous experiments. He asked subjects to note when they became aware of an intention to move. Meanwhile, he measured brain activity. The brain showed readiness potential 550 milliseconds before subjects reported awareness, more than half a second. Their brain had already initiated the action before they knew they wanted to do it. Consciousness didn't cause the action. It witnessed it after the fact. But here's what's stranger. Your brain hides the delay. It backdates your awareness to make it feel instantaneous. You press a button. You feel like you decided to press it right before you did. But actually, your brain decided 550 milliseconds before that, and your consciousness was informed last. Then your brain retroactively edited your timeline to make you feel in control. You experience events that already happened and believe they're happening now. This lag explains strange phenomena. Why does time seem to slow down during accidents? It doesn't. Your brain goes into high alert, recording more information per second. Later, when you remember it, all that extra information makes it seem like more time passed. You didn't experience slow motion. You remembered it as slow motion. Your brain rewrote the experience after the fact. The present moment you experience is a fiction. It's a smoothed, edited, time-shifted reconstruction. Reality is messy, fragmented, arriving at different speeds. Your brain stitches it into a coherent now and presents it to consciousness. But that now is always slightly in the past. You're living in a museum of moments that just ended. Sound and light travel at different speeds. A lightning strike happens. Light reaches you first. Sound arrives later, but you experience them simultaneously. Your brain delays the light to sync with the sound. It manipulates your timeline to create coherence. You don't experience what happens. You experience what your brain says happened after it's had time to edit. This has profound implications. You think you're making decisions in real time, responding to the world as it is. But you're responding to the world as it was half a second ago. Reality has moved on. You're reacting to ghosts. Every conversation you have is on delay. By the time you hear what someone said, they've already moved to their next thought. By the time you respond, your response is to something they said half a second ago. We're all living in slightly different times, talking to each other's recent past, constantly out of sync, but pretending we're in the moment together. You've never experienced now, ever. You've only experienced a rolling series of just-then moments your brain passes off as now. The present moment doesn't exist, not for you, not for your consciousness. By the time you arrive, it's already gone. You are perpetually late to your own life. A time traveler stuck 500 milliseconds in the past, forever chasing a present you'll never catch. The moment you reach for is gone before you touch it. The now you feel is history wearing a disguise. You've never been present. You've been watching reruns your whole life and calling them reality. Imagine being blind, completely. You see nothing. Blackness. No shapes, no light, no colors, just void. Now imagine someone throws a ball at you, and you catch it, without seeing it, without knowing how. This is blindsight, and it reveals consciousness might not be necessary for perception. Patient GY was in a car accident. The crash destroyed his visual cortex, the part of the brain that creates conscious sight. He went blind in half his visual field, completely blind. Show him an object on his blind side. He reports seeing nothing. Blackness. He's not lying. He genuinely sees nothing. But then researchers tried something strange. They asked him to guess where objects were. Just guess. Random. He protested. I can't see anything. I can't guess. They insisted. Just point randomly. He did. And he was right. Over and over. Far better than chance. He was seeing objects he couldn't see. When they threw objects at him, he ducked. When they put obstacles in his path, he walked around them. When they showed him emotional faces, his skin conductance changed, even though he saw nothing. His brain was processing visual information. It was receiving signals, interpreting them, responding appropriately. But none of it reached consciousness. The lights were on, but nobody was home to see them. This is because of the superior colliculus, an ancient brain structure that predates the visual cortex. It processes vision unconsciously. It guides reflexive actions, and it works fine without consciousness. In evolutionary terms, consciousness is a latecomer. For millions of years, animals navigated, hunted, fled without it. Vision worked perfectly well in the dark. Consciousness was added later, like a screen showing what the processor is doing. But the processor doesn't need the screen. The screen is optional, for commentary, for reflection, but not for function. Blindsight patients prove this. They can navigate obstacle courses while seeing nothing. They can identify objects, colors, motion, all while consciously blind. Their brain sees. But they don't. Which raises a horrifying question. What if most of your perception works this way? What if you're processing vast amounts of information unconsciously, and consciousness only sees a tiny curated highlight reel? You probably are. Studies show your unconscious perceives far more than your consciousness ever sees. Your brain knows things you don't know you know. You walk into a room and feel something's wrong. You don't know what. Your unconscious detected it. But it didn't bother informing you, just triggered an emotion and left you to figure out why. You meet someone and instantly distrust them, no idea why. Your unconscious read micro-expressions, detected inconsistencies, reached a conclusion, then handed you the feeling without the data. You are blind to most of what you see. Your unconscious sees it all. Consciousness sees the edited version, the summary, the press release. Blindsight reveals the unsettling truth. Consciousness is not the core of perception. It's an add-on, a commentary track. The movie plays fine without it. So what is consciousness for? If the brain can see, navigate, respond without it, why have it? Nobody knows. It might be for integration, for long-term planning, for imagining scenarios that don't exist yet, for talking to other conscious beings and pretending we're seeing the same world. But for moment-to-moment perception, consciousness might be optional, a luxury, a screen showing you what already happened in the basement of your brain. You think you see with consciousness, but consciousness might just be watching your unconscious see, taking credit and calling itself the observer. Blindsight patients live your truth. They just live it more honestly. They know they're blind to what their brain sees. You're blind too. You just haven't noticed yet. Put your hand behind a screen. Place a rubber hand in front of you where your real hand should be. Now watch as someone strokes the rubber hand with a brush. At the exact same time, they stroke your hidden real hand. Within 60 seconds, something impossible happens. The rubber hand becomes yours. You feel the brush on the rubber. You feel ownership. That fake hand is now part of your body. Then they stab the rubber hand with a knife. You flinch. Your heart rate spikes. You feel panic for a hand made of silicone. Your brain has been hacked. It adopted a rubber hand in under a minute. This is the rubber hand illusion. And it proves your sense of embodiment is shockingly fragile. Your brain doesn't know what's your body and what isn't. It guesses, based on correlation. If visual and tactile signals synchronize, your brain assumes they're from the same source. It incorporates that source into your body schema. Rubber, flesh, doesn't matter. Synchronization is all that counts. The implications are staggering. Your sense of my body is not based on physical connection. It's based on predicted correlation. Your brain expects signals to match. When they do, it claims ownership. This is how prosthetics work. Amputees feel artificial limbs as their own once the brain integrates them. The metal and plastic become me because signals align with predictions. This is how VR works. Strap on a headset, see a virtual body, move in sync with it. Your brain accepts it as you. You feel present in that virtual body. Touch something virtual, your brain reacts as if it's real. Your brain doesn't care about reality. It cares about consistency. Give it consistent signals, it'll believe anything. This explains phantom limb syndrome. Amputees feel missing limbs because the brain's body map hasn't updated. The map still includes the limb, so the person still feels it. Pain, itching, movement, from a body part that doesn't exist. The brain map is more real than the body. The map is your experience. The body is just meat the map refers to. And the map can be hacked. Rubber hands, prosthetics, VR, even mirrors. Place an amputee in front of a mirror, showing their intact limb reflected where the missing one should be. The brain sees the reflection and believes the limb is back. The phantom pain vanishes. A reflection cured pain from a limb that doesn't exist. Because pain was never in the limb. It was in the map. Your body is not a physical thing you inhabit. It's a simulation your brain runs. A best guess based on incoming signals. And that guess can be wrong, can be manipulated, can include things that aren't you and exclude things that are. People with body integrity identity disorder feel that a healthy limb isn't theirs. The map doesn't include it. They beg for amputation, not because the limb is damaged, because the map says it doesn't belong. Others feel they should have tails, wings, extra limbs. Their body map includes parts they don't have. They feel incomplete without them. Your body map is not your body, but your body map is your experience. And if the two don't match, your experience wins. The map is reality. The body is just an inconvenient detail. You've never felt your actual body. You've felt your brain's map of your body. And that map is plastic, editable, hackable, a fiction you believe because you've never known anything else. The rubber hand becomes yours in 60 seconds. How long did it take for your real hand to become yours? How do you know it's not just another rubber hand you've been fooled into claiming? You are not your body. You are your brain's story about your body. And stories can be rewritten. Your body is a lie, a convincing one, but a lie nonetheless. Inside your brain is a distorted map of your body. A grotesque little man with huge hands, giant lips, enormous tongue, and tiny torso. This is the cortical homunculus, and it's the only you your brain knows. The somatosensory cortex dedicates space based on sensitivity, not size. Your hands have thousands of nerve endings, so they occupy massive brain real estate. Your back has few, so it barely registers. If you drew a human based on brain space allocation, you'd get a monster. Hands the size of your torso, lips bigger than your legs, genitals comically oversized, trunk and limbs shrunken to sticks. This is your body as your brain experiences it. This is the map. The territory is irrelevant. Neurosurgeon Wilder Penfield discovered this in the 1950s. He was treating epilepsy patients. He stimulated different parts of the motor cortex with electrodes. Patients were awake. They reported what they felt. Touch one spot, the thumb twitches. Another, the lip curls. Another, the toe moves. Penfield mapped the entire body onto the brain's surface. But the map was weird, non-proportional, fragmented. Body parts weren't arranged logically. The genitals were next to the foot. The hand was far from the arm. Because the map isn't about anatomy. It's about neural real estate. It's about importance, not position. This explains phantom limb pain. When a limb is amputated, the brain map remains. The neurons representing that limb are still there, still firing, still expecting input. When they don't get it, they scream. The brain interprets this as pain from the missing limb. Sometimes adjacent brain areas invade the now unused territory. The face area is next to the hand area. Lose your hand, and touching your face can trigger sensations in the phantom hand. Your cheek and your missing fingers become confused. The map is reorganizing. Badly. Mirror therapy exploits this. Place a mirror so the intact limb's reflection appears where the missing one should be. The brain sees the missing limb move. The map calms down. The phantom pain stops. You tricked your brain with a reflection. Because your brain doesn't know what's real. It only knows the map. The map is everything. Stroke patients lose parts of the map. Some can't feel the left side of their body. Others deny their left side exists at all. Show them their left arm, they insist it belongs to someone else. The map doesn't include it anymore. So, it's not theirs. Damage the right parietal lobe, you get hemispatial neglect. Patients ignore the entire left half of space. They eat food from the right side of the plate, leave the left untouched. Not because they can't see it, because their map doesn't include left. Left has ceased to exist. For them, it genuinely doesn't exist. You can't miss what's not on your map. You can't perceive what your map doesn't chart. Your experience of embodiment, the feeling of being in your body, is just brain regions communicating. Disrupt those regions and embodiment fragments. You can feel outside your body, inside someone else's body, nowhere at all. The homunculus is your true body. The flesh is just hardware. The map is the experience, and the experience is all you'll ever know. You've never felt your actual body. You've felt the map, and the map is a cartoon, distorted, incomplete, constantly changing. Touch your face. You think you're feeling your face. You're feeling neurons in the somatosensory cortex firing in a pattern your brain interprets as face. The face might not be there. You'd never know, because you're trapped in the map. And the map is all you can ever feel. Your body is fiction. The homunculus is fact. And the homunculus is a monster, a beautiful, functional monster, but a monster nonetheless. Your leg is gone. Below the knee, nothing. You can see the empty space, but you feel it. Your toes itch, your ankle aches. You wiggle your foot, except you can't, because there is no foot. This is phantom limb syndrome. 80% of amputees experience it. The limb is gone. The brain refuses to accept it. The body map in your somatosensory cortex still includes the missing part. Neurons fire, expecting input that will never come. Your brain sends signals to move the phantom foot. No feedback returns. But the neurons keep trying. You feel movement in a limb that doesn't exist. Worse is phantom pain. Excruciating pain in missing limbs. Burning, crushing, stabbing. From body parts that aren't there. How do you treat pain in something that doesn't exist? Morphine doesn't work. There's no injury. The pain is entirely brain-generated. Some phantom limbs freeze in painful positions. A hand clenched in a fist so tight, the phantom nails dig into the phantom palm. The person tries to open it. Can't. Because there is no hand. The brain remembers the last position, the moment of trauma, and loops that signal endlessly. Neuroscientist V.S. Ramachandran discovered something remarkable: the mirror box. The amputee places their intact limb on one side of a mirror, looks at the reflection where the missing limb should be. The brain sees the missing limb, sees it move, relax. The phantom pain vanishes. A reflection cured pain from a limb that doesn't exist, because the pain was never in the limb. It was in the map. Your body is not where you think it is. Your body is where your brain thinks it is. And those aren't the same place. Physical reality says the limb is gone. Neural reality says it's there. Neural reality wins. Because neural reality is the only reality you experience. Some amputees feel touch on phantom limbs. Ramachandran discovered that touching the face triggered sensations in the phantom hand. Face neurons had invaded unused hand territory. The map was redrawn. Your brain map is plastic. When input stops, neighboring regions expand. Your brain colonizes itself. But sometimes the map refuses to update. Decades after amputation, patients still feel the missing limb, still reach with hands that aren't there. Brain's body memory is stronger than physical reality. The map outlives the territory. If you can feel a body part that doesn't exist, how do you know the parts you feel are actually there? You don't. You only know the map. Your body could be an illusion. You'd never know. All you feel is what your brain tells you is there. Experience is not reality. Experience is a story the brain tells, and the brain tells that story whether reality exists or not. Your body is a ghost haunting your brain. When the body leaves, sometimes the ghost remains, screaming in pain from wounds that never were. You are not your body. You are your brain's memory of your body. And memory doesn't die when the body does. You're talking. You hear yourself, but it doesn't feel like you. The voice sounds distant. Someone else is speaking with your mouth. Your hands don't feel like yours. You watch them move and think, whose hands are those? You're here, but you're not. This is dissociation, depersonalization. You're not real. You're watching yourself from outside. You're a character you're observing, not inhabiting. Your thoughts feel alien. Your emotions feel fake. Derealization. The world isn't real. Everything looks flat, two-dimensional, like a movie set. People seem like actors. Nothing feels solid. Millions experience these symptoms, some chronically, some in brief episodes triggered by stress, trauma, exhaustion. During extreme trauma, the brain disconnects. It severs the link between experience and self. You're still processing information, but the you that experiences has been removed. It's protective. When reality is too painful, the brain ejects you. You become an observer. The trauma happens to someone else. Abuse survivors describe watching themselves from the ceiling, feeling nothing. Their brain created distance between self and experience. But sometimes dissociation doesn't turn off. You spend life outside yourself, never quite present, never quite real. Chronic dissociation feels like living behind glass. You see the world, can't touch it. Everything is muffled, distant, wrong. They look in mirrors and don't recognize their face. Their name sounds foreign. They experience emotions but can't connect. Joy feels fake. Sadness feels performed. Neuroscience shows dissociation involves decreased activity in self-awareness regions. The default mode network quiets. The insula shows reduced activation. The brain turns down self. The sense of being someone, somewhere, dims. You drift, untethered. The sense of being yourself isn't constant. It's not binary. It's a spectrum. You can be fully present, partially present, barely present, absent while appearing. Consciousness isn't on or off. It's a dimmer switch. Mild dissociation is universal. Driving home on autopilot and waking up in your driveway with no memory. Reading a page and absorbing nothing. You were conscious, not present. In those moments, you weren't there. Systems ran. Body functioned. But the self was offline. We spend more time dissociated than we realize. The you isn't always home. The terrifying part. You might be dissociated right now and not know. Because dissociation includes not recognizing you're dissociated. How present are you? Right now. Are you fully here? Or watching yourself read? Can you tell the difference? Dissociation proves the self is optional. The brain functions fine without it. Can walk, talk, work, eat, while the sense of I is dimmed or gone. You are not necessary. You are a feature the brain sometimes runs and sometimes doesn't. And when it doesn't, you don't notice. Because there's no you to notice your absence. You can be halfway gone and never realize you left. You walk into a room. You've been here before. You know you haven't, but you have. The certainty is overwhelming. Then the moment passes. You're left disoriented. What was that? Déjà vu. Already seen. One of the brain's strangest glitches. 70% of people experience it. A sudden, intense familiarity with a new situation. It lasts seconds, then vanishes. Your brain mislabeled the present as the past. The hippocampus stumbled. It stamped familiar on something happening now. You experience the present as a memory. You feel like you're remembering as it happens. You haven't. Your brain just thinks you have. Déjà vu involves the medial temporal lobe, the hippocampus and rhinal cortex. These handle memory formation. When they misfire, familiarity signals fire for novel experiences. Your memory system sends a match-found signal when no match exists. The feeling is real. The memory isn't. Some people experience déjà vu constantly, especially those with temporal lobe epilepsy. Every moment feels like it happened before. They're trapped in a loop of false familiarity. One patient, drowning in memories that aren't mine. Another, always remembering something I've never lived. This suggests déjà vu is a threshold phenomenon. Everyone's brain occasionally glitches. In some, the glitch becomes permanent. Reality becomes a rerun. Theories exist. One, perception splits. One processing stream moves faster. You perceive something, then perceive perceiving it. The second perception feels like a memory. You experience the same moment twice, creating illusion of repetition. Another, the brain creates predictions. When reality matches perfectly, the prediction feels like a memory. You remember something that was a guess. Or maybe déjà vu is a leak, a glimpse of parallel timelines, a moment when the multiverse bleeds through. You feel familiarity because in another timeline, you did live this moment. Science can't disprove this, can't prove it either. But déjà vu's uncanny precision, knowing exactly what happens next, suggests something stranger than misfiring. Whatever the cause, déjà vu reveals. Your memory system is unreliable. It tags things incorrectly, creates familiarity where none exists. Your sense of, I've been here before, is a feeling, not a fact. And feelings lie. Memory is not a recording. It's a construction, a draft. Every time you remember, you rewrite. Every time you feel familiarity, your brain is guessing. Sometimes it guesses wrong, creates false recognition, invents memories, confuses prediction with recollection. You trust your memory. But your memory constantly lies, filling gaps, creating coherence, insisting you remember things you don't. Déjà vu is the moment you catch your memory in the lie. A brief flicker where the illusion becomes visible. How many memories are real? How many are glitches you didn't notice? You'll never know. You can't fact-check your own memories. They're all you have, and they're all unreliable. Your past is a story your brain tells. Sometimes it gets details wrong, invents scenes, replays moments that never happened. You are not who you remember being. You are who your brain claims you were. And your brain is making it up. You think you can multitask. Read this while thinking about something else. Listen to music while working. You can't. You're not multitasking. You're task switching. Fast, but not simultaneous. Your conscious attention is a spotlight. It illuminates one thing at a time. You can move it quickly, but you can't split it. Try this. Think about a pink elephant. Now, while still thinking about it, think about dinner. Fully. Both thoughts, same time. You can't. You toggle. Elephant, dinner. Elephant, dinner. Fast switching that feels like simultaneity. fMRI studies confirm this. When people multitask, brains don't activate multiple regions simultaneously. They alternate. Region A lights up, dims. Region B lights up, dims. The switching is so fast you don't notice. But there are gaps, microsecond blackouts, where you're not attending to either task. This is the attentional blink. Your brain can't process two things in the same moment. If two stimuli arrive close together, the second doesn't register. This is why you miss things while multitasking, why you reread sentences while distracted, why you don't hear someone talking while texting. Your attention was elsewhere. When attention leaves, consciousness leaves. You were functionally blind, deaf, absent. The cost of task switching is enormous. Studies show switching between tasks reduces productivity by 40%. Every switch requires disengagement from task A, reconfiguration for task B, then engagement. You think you're saving time by doing two things at once. You're wasting time by doing both poorly. Your brain has one conscious processor, one stream of awareness, one spotlight. You can aim it quickly, but it's always aimed at one thing. Listening to a podcast while working. You're either listening or working, not both. You toggle. Most of what you hear doesn't register. Most of what you do is sloppy. Texting while talking, you're insulting them. When you look at your phone, they cease to exist for you. Your attention left. When you're not paying attention to something, it's not in your experience. It might as well not exist. This is why conversations while scrolling are empty. Why marriages fail when one person is always on their phone. You're not present. Presence requires attention, and attention is singular. You cannot think two thoughts simultaneously. You cannot be conscious of two things at once. The spotlight moves, but never splits. Try it now. Think about your breath. Now think about a memory. Now this sentence. You're toggling. Never all at once. Your consciousness is a single thread, a narrow beam in vast darkness. Most of your experience happens outside that beam, in the unconscious. And even that narrow beam can only light one thing at a time. You are not multitasking. You are rapidly switching between states of partial attention. In the gaps between switches, you're conscious of nothing. You are less present than you think, more absent, more fragmented. One thought, one moment, one point of awareness. That's all you get. When you try to split it, you lose both halves, end up nowhere, conscious of nothing. The spotlight is singular. When you aim it at everything, it illuminates nothing. You are one thought at a time, one moment at a time, one attention at a time. Everything else is darkness, and you're spending most of your life there. If everything you see is just your brain's painting, if consciousness always lags behind reality, if you can't focus on two thoughts at once, does reality exist? Or is everything just a dream your brain is dreaming? And if it's a dream, who is the dreamer? Right now, you believe you're choosing to read this. You decided. You're in control. You're not. That decision was made by neural processes you don't control, didn't observe, and can't access. Your conscious mind is just being informed. This is the death of free will. And the evidence is devastating. Philosopher Sam Harris puts it bluntly. You are not the author of your thoughts. They simply arise in consciousness. Try this. Don't think about a white bear. Right now, just don't. You failed. The thought appeared anyway. You didn't choose it. It arose unbidden. You could only watch. Now think of your next sentence before you say it. Can you? Or do words just arrive? Every thought bubbles up from the unconscious. You experience them as yours, but you don't create them. They're given to you by processes you don't control. Your brain is a biological machine. It follows the laws of physics. Every neural firing has a prior cause. Every cause has a prior cause. The chain stretches back to your birth. your genes, the Big Bang. At no point in this causal chain is there a magical you that stands outside physics and makes uncaused choices. Determinism says, given the state of the universe at any moment, the future is inevitable. Your brain state at time t determines your brain state at time t plus 1. You feel like you're choosing, but you're just watching determinism unfold. Some philosophers argue for compatibilism. Free will and determinism can coexist. You're free if you act according to your desires, even if those desires were determined. But that's word games. If your desires are determined by prior causes you didn't choose, how are you free? You didn't choose your genes. You didn't choose your childhood. You didn't choose the neurochemical state you're in right now. You didn't choose the thought that just appeared in your mind. So what did you choose? Neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky. Show me one neuron that acts independently of its biological history, and we can talk about free will. No one can, because every neuron is shaped by genetics, development, hormones, environment, recent experience. There's no ghost in the machine, just the machine. Your brain is a prediction engine. It models the world, predicts what will happen, generates behaviors likely to achieve goals. Those goals were set by evolution, shaped by experience, triggered by environment. You don't set the goals. You don't make the predictions. You don't choose the behaviors. The brain does all that. You are the press release explaining what already happened. This has profound implications. If no one truly chooses their actions, can we blame criminals? Should we punish people for behaviors they were always going to perform? Some say yes, because punishment is part of the causal chain that modifies behavior. Others say our entire justice system is based on a fiction. But here's the paradox. Even knowing free will is an illusion doesn't make it feel like an illusion. You can't stop experiencing choice. The feeling is hardwired. And maybe that's the point. Maybe consciousness evolved not to make decisions, but to create the feeling of agency. To make you believe you're in control so you stay motivated, engaged, planning. The puppet believes it pulls its own strings, and that belief keeps the show running. You don't have free will, but you can't stop feeling like you do. The illusion is perfect, unbreakable. Right now, you think you're choosing whether to keep reading, but that decision was made before you were aware of it. Unconscious processes determined it was worthwhile. Your conscious mind is just narrating a journey it didn't plan. You didn't choose to be born. You didn't choose your brain. You didn't choose the thoughts arising right now. So what did you choose? Maybe nothing. Maybe you are just the story your brain tells about actions it was always going to take. The author of your life is not you. It's physics, biology, causality, an unbroken chain of prior causes stretching back before you existed. And you're just the narrator, reading a script you didn't write, pretending you're improvising. Free will is the brain's most beautiful lie, and you'll believe it until you die, because you have no choice. In the 1980s, Benjamin Libet conducted an experiment that shattered philosophy. He asked subjects to flex their wrists whenever they felt like it. Spontaneous, whenever the urge struck. Subjects watched a clock and noted the exact moment they felt the conscious intention to move. Meanwhile, Libet monitored brain activity with EEG. The results were devastating. Brain activity spiked 550 milliseconds before subjects reported feeling the urge to move. More than half a second before they decided, their brains had already initiated the action. The conscious decision was an afterthought, a narrator describing a choice already made. This neural activity is called the readiness potential, a gradual build-up of electrical charge in motor regions. It appears before you're aware of wanting to act. It suggests consciousness doesn't initiate action, it observes it, but it gets worse. In 2008, neuroscientist John Dylan Haynes repeated the experiment with fMRI scanners. He asked subjects to press a button with either their left or right hand, their choice whenever they wanted. The fMRI predicted which hand they would choose up to 7 seconds before they were aware of deciding. 7 seconds. For 7 seconds, their brains had already committed, assembled motor commands, made the choice, and they had no idea. They sat there, thinking they were freely deciding, while their unconscious mind had already cast the vote. The decision they eventually felt wasn't a decision. It was a notification, an email from their brain. FYI, we're doing this now. This destroys the intuition that consciousness causes action. If the brain acts before consciousness knows, then consciousness can't be the cause. It's the witness, the spectator, the commentator arriving after the game. Some neuroscientists argue there's still room for free will. Maybe consciousness doesn't initiate action, but it can veto. A free won't instead of free will. In the 200 milliseconds between readiness potential and action, you might be able to stop yourself. Consciousness can't start the car, but maybe it can hit the brakes. Studies show this might be real. Subjects can sometimes suppress actions after readiness. Potential appears. Consciousness might have veto power, but even the veto comes from somewhere, from neurons firing in patterns determined by prior causes. You didn't choose your veto impulse. It arose like everything else. If every choice emerges from prior states you didn't control, is any choice truly free? The philosopher Daniel Wegner called this the illusion of conscious will. We feel like our conscious thoughts cause our actions, but actually, both the thoughts and the actions are caused by unconscious processes. They just happen to occur close together in time, creating the illusion of causation. You think, I'll raise my arm. Then your arm raises. It feels like the thought caused the action, but both were caused by prior neural activity you never saw. Correlation, not causation. Your conscious will is a spectator taking credit. Think about your next action. Anything. Move your finger. Blink. Whatever. Notice. You don't know you're going to do it until you're already doing it. The intention and the action feel simultaneous, but they're not. The brain decided first. Consciousness was informed last. You are not the author of your actions. You are the audience, watching a play you think you're directing. This has disturbing implications. If consciousness doesn't cause behavior, then what are you? A passive observer, a narrator with no agency. Some argue consciousness has other functions: integration, simulation, social coordination, just not action initiation. Others argue the experiments are flawed. Maybe readiness potential is just preparation, not decision. Maybe the real decision happens later in that 200 millisecond veto window. But the weight of evidence leans toward a disturbing conclusion. Your conscious mind is not in the driver's seat. It's in the back seat, looking at a fake steering wheel, pretending to drive. The car is driving itself. And it decided where it's going 7 seconds before telling you. Right now, you think you're choosing whether to keep reading. But that decision was made before you knew. Your brain chose. Your consciousness is just being notified. You don't choose. You witness, you narrate, you take credit. But you don't choose. The readiness potential is rising. The decision is already made. You just haven't been informed yet. And when you are informed, you'll feel like you made the choice. The illusion is perfect. Because if you didn't feel free, you wouldn't act. And the brain needs you to act. So it lets you believe you're choosing. But you're not. You never were. The conductor is not conducting. He's just waving his arms in time with a symphony already playing. And that conductor is you. Your heart stops. Blood stops flowing. Oxygen stops reaching your brain. You are, by every medical definition, dead. But your brain doesn't know it yet. For up to 10 minutes after clinical death, your brain continues to produce electrical activity. Neurons fire. Waves propagate across your cortex. Your brain is still processing. Processing what? No one knows. But it's happening. Studies on rats show that after cardiac arrest, the brain enters a state of hyperactivity. Neural firing rates spike. Connectivity increases. The brain becomes more active than it was during life. It's as if, in those final moments, your brain is doing something. Reviewing, integrating, completing. Then slowly the activity fades, like a light dimming, not a switch flipping off, a gradual dissolution. Consciousness doesn't end instantly, it fades. And in that fading, something happens. This might explain near-death experiences, the tunnel of light, the life review, the sense of leaving your body. These aren't supernatural, they're neurological. When oxygen drops, the visual cortex misfires. Neurons in the center of your visual field fire more than those at the edges. You see a bright light in the center, darkness at the periphery. A tunnel. The hippocampus, starved of oxygen, dumps memories. Your life flashes before you. Not metaphorically, literally. A rapid-fire replay of stored experiences. The temporoparietal junction destabilizes. Your sense of embodiment fails. You feel like you're floating above your body, watching yourself from outside. All of this happens in the brain. No soul required. But there's another theory. Some researchers suggest the brain releases a massive dose of DMT, dimethyltryptamine, at death. DMT is a powerful psychedelic. In high doses, it creates experiences indistinguishable from near-death reports. Users describe tunnels, lights, meeting entities, life reviews, ego death, merging with the universe. Exactly what dying people report. Maybe death is the brain's final trip, a neurochemical flood that creates the experience of transcendence. Not because there's an afterlife, because your brain is hallucinating one. Or maybe it's both. Maybe the neurological explanations are true, but there's more. Maybe consciousness in those final moments touches something beyond the physical. Science can't rule it out, can't prove it either. But the subjective reports are consistent across cultures, across centuries. People dying describe the same things. Either there's a universal neurological process creating identical hallucinations, or there's something real they're all experiencing. We don't know. We can't know, because the only way to find out is to die, and no one comes back to tell us with certainty. What we do know, your brain doesn't stop the moment your heart does. There's a window, minutes long, where your brain is still active, still processing, still, in some sense, conscious. What is it experiencing in that window? Is it suffering, peaceful, aware of dying? Patients who've been resuscitated describe it differently. Some say darkness, nothingness. Others say bliss, transcendence, meeting loved ones, seeing God. Some say they didn't want to come back, that death was beautiful, more real than life, that returning felt like being forced back into a prison. Others say they fought to return, clawed their way back, refused to die. Same process, different experiences, or different interpretations of the same experience. Your brain in those final moments is in a state it's never been in, flooded with neurochemicals, dying, misfiring, creating, maybe destroying itself creates something. One last burst of consciousness before the darkness, or maybe not darkness, maybe transition. Maybe the brain's final act is to open a door, and what's on the other side, we'll all find out, eventually. What's certain, consciousness doesn't flip off like a light switch. It's not binary, it's a gradient, and at death, you slide down that gradient slowly. You fade, like a song ending, not a sudden stop, a gradual quiet. And in that quiet, your brain is still singing. One last song, one last dream. Then silence, or not silence. But we'll never know, because the ones who know don't come back, and the ones who come back didn't go all the way. Death is the one experience you can't report on. The final mystery, the last question with no answer, your brain will keep processing after you die, for minutes, experiencing something, thinking something, feeling something, and then it will stop, and whatever you were will be gone, or transformed, or released. We don't know, but your brain, in its final moments, might, and you'll be the last to find out. She was clinically dead for 8 minutes. No heartbeat, no breathing, no brain activity on the monitors. Then she came back, and she described everything. The doctor's conversations, the nurse who left the room, the specific instruments used during resuscitation, details she couldn't have known. She was unconscious. How did she see? She says she was floating above her body, watching from the ceiling, aware, conscious, more conscious than she'd ever been. This is a near-death experience, and millions have reported them. The pattern is consistent. A tunnel, a bright light, a sense of peace. Meeting deceased loved ones, a life review where every moment flashes by. A boundary, a river, a door, a line, beyond which you can't return. Some feel pulled back, others choose to return. All say the experience was more real than reality, that life after feels like a dream in comparison. Neuroscience has explanations. Oxygen deprivation causes the visual cortex to misfire, creating the tunnel. Endorphins flood the system, creating euphoria. The hippocampus dumps memories, creating the life review. The dying brain hallucinates. But the explanations don't fit everything. How do people report accurate details about their resuscitation when they were clinically dead? How do blind people describe visual experiences during NDEs? How do children who've never heard of tunnels or lights describe them anyway? Dr. Sam Parnia, a resuscitation researcher, has studied thousands of cardiac arrest survivors. He says about 10–20% report conscious experiences during clinical death. Some knew things they shouldn't. Details from rooms they were never in. Conversations that happened while they were dead. Skeptics argue they heard things, pieced together fragments, constructed false memories later. But some cases are harder to dismiss. Patients describing objects on top of cabinets they couldn't see from their hospital bed. Patients born blind describing colors, faces, scenes during their NDE. Either mass hallucination or something else. The something else is controversial. Some researchers suggest consciousness might not be produced by the brain. Maybe the brain is a receiver, not a generator, like a radio receiving a signal. If so, death doesn't end consciousness. It just ends the receiver. The signal continues. Or maybe not. Maybe it's all neurochemistry, DMT floods, oxygen deprivation, wishful thinking transformed into false memory. But the experiencers disagree. They say it wasn't a hallucination, it was realer than real. Life is the dream. That was waking up. Some come back transformed, no longer fear death, become spiritual, claim they met God, deceased relatives, beings of light. Others come back disappointed. They say dying was beautiful, peaceful, complete, and coming back felt like falling into darkness, not escaping it. NDEs change people profoundly. They lose interest in materialism, gain compassion, feel connected to everything, as if they touched something true and can't unsee it. Is it real? Is consciousness independent of the brain? Does something continue after death? Science can't answer. The experience is subjective, unfalsifiable. You can't prove or disprove the soul by measuring neurons. But the consistency across cultures, across time, suggests something. Either a universal brain process or a universal experience of something beyond the brain. Maybe both are true. Maybe the brain creates the tunnel, but the tunnel leads somewhere real. Maybe hallucination and transcendence are the same thing. The brain opening a door it can only open once. You'll find out. Everyone does, eventually. But here's what we know. People who die and come back say death isn't the end. They say it's a beginning, a transition, a release. They say consciousness continues, in some form, somewhere. They say don't be afraid. But they also say you can't come back. Once you cross the boundary, it's over. And they don't know what's beyond it, because they only saw the entrance. Near death is not death. It's the doorway, and everyone who's been through it says the door is real. What's on the other side? They don't know, but they say it's beautiful, and they're not afraid anymore. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're hallucinating. Maybe the brain's final gift is a beautiful lie to ease the transition. Or maybe it's true. Maybe consciousness is more than neurons. Maybe death is birth into something else. You'll find out. One day. And you won't be able to tell anyone. Because the ones who truly know don't come back. You're in a dream. Everything feels real. Then suddenly you realize, this is a dream. You're asleep. None of this is real. And in that moment, everything changes. You can fly, walk through walls, create anything. You're God in your own universe. This is lucid dreaming, and it's proof that consciousness can be aware of its own illusions. In REM sleep, your brain is as active as when you're awake, sometimes more. The visual cortex fires, the motor cortex sends signals, but your body is paralyzed, so you dream instead of moving. Most people never realize they're dreaming. They accept the dream as reality, no matter how absurd it gets. But some people wake up inside the dream. They become conscious within the illusion, and they can control it. Lucid dreamers report incredible experiences, flying, teleporting, summoning people, creating worlds, all while asleep, all with full awareness that it's a dream. Studies confirm it's real. Researchers have lucid dreamers signal from inside dreams using pre-arranged eye movements. The sleeper is dreaming, knows they're dreaming, and can communicate with the waking world through eye signals. Consciousness persists in sleep. It just inhabits a different reality. And if you can be conscious in a dream, what does that say about waking life? Some philosophers argue waking life is just another dream, a more stable one, more consistent, but still a construction, a hallucination you can't wake from. In dreams, your brain generates reality entirely. No external input, pure hallucination, and it feels real until you wake up. In waking life, your brain generates reality from sensory input. But as we've seen, 90% is prediction. Only 10% is input. You're mostly hallucinating while awake too. So what's the difference between dreaming and waking? Consistency? Stability? Consensus? Other people's hallucinations match yours. But the process is the same. Your brain is always dreaming, always generating reality. Sometimes it checks with the senses, sometimes it doesn't. Lucid dreaming has practical applications. You can rehearse skills in dreams. Athletes practice moves. Musicians play instruments. The brain forms the same neural connections as real practice. You can confront nightmares, face fears in a space where you have control, therapy without consequences. You can explore consciousness itself, test the limits of subjective experience, discover what your mind can create when freed from physics. But it also raises questions. If you can be fully conscious in a dream, indistinguishable from waking consciousness, how do you know you're awake now? You don't. You assume. But you've assumed that in dreams too, and been wrong. Some lucid dreamers report becoming stuck, struggling to wake, trapped in layered dreams, waking into another dream, then another, unsure which level is real. They describe existential terror, not knowing what's real, if anything is real, if they're truly awake or still dreaming. This is the danger of lucid dreaming. Once you realize consciousness can be fully present in an illusion, you can't unsee it. You start questioning waking reality. Are you awake now, or dreaming that you're awake? Can you tell the difference? In dreams, reality feels real until it doesn't. Until something breaks the illusion and you wake up. What if waking life is the same? What if you're in a dream and one day you'll wake up into something realer? Some spiritual traditions say exactly this. That life is Maya, illusion. That awakening is waking from the dream of existence. Lucid dreaming is practice, learning to be conscious within illusion, recognizing illusion as illusion, and maybe, eventually, waking up. Or maybe not. Maybe there's no final waking, just layers of dreams, each one feeling real until you wake into the next. You're conscious now, but are you awake? Or lucid dreaming in a world you think is real? You can't know, because in dreams you're always sure you're awake, until you wake up. And then you wonder, am I awake now, or just dreaming that I am? The question has no answer, because consciousness is the same in dreams and waking. Awareness is awareness. Reality is whatever you're experiencing. So maybe the question isn't, am I dreaming? Maybe it's, does it matter? You're conscious. You're experiencing. Whether it's a dream or not, the experience is real to you. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all there ever is. Consciousness. Experiencing. Dreaming or awake, it's the same thing. You're aware. That's what matters. Everything else is just the content of the dream, and you're the dreamer, asleep or awake, lucid or not, always dreaming, never sure which level is real. Sit still. Watch your breath. Don't think. Just observe. Simple? Impossible. Within seconds, your mind wanders. Thoughts arise. You follow them. Forget you're meditating. Then you remember. Come back. And the cycle repeats. This is meditation. And it's harder than it sounds. But if you keep doing it, something remarkable happens. Your brain changes, physically, structurally, permanently. Studies using MRI scans show that long-term meditators have thicker prefrontal cortexes, the region associated with attention, awareness, self-control. They have smaller amygdalas, the region associated with fear and anxiety. Meditation literally rewires your brain. 8 weeks of mindfulness practice is enough to see structural changes. The brain is plastic, and meditation sculpts it. But the changes aren't just structural, they're functional. Experienced meditators show decreased activity in the default mode network, the brain regions that generate self-referential thinking. The DMN is the voice in your head, the narrator, the one that says, I am this, I want that, I'm worried about. It's the machinery of ego. In deep meditation, the DMN goes quiet, and something strange happens. The sense of I fades. There's awareness, but no one being aware, just awareness itself. This is called ego death, and meditators report it's the most profound experience of their lives. The boundaries between self and world dissolve. You feel connected to everything, not metaphorically, experientially. There's no separation between you and the universe because there's no you to be separate. It's not that you merge with the universe, it's that you realize you were never separate. The self was an illusion all along, and when the illusion drops, what remains is pure consciousness, aware, present, but not personal, not yours. This matches what split-brain patients, phantom limb sufferers, and dissociative patients show us. The self is a construct, a brain-generated illusion for organizing experience. Meditation turns it off, temporarily, and in that space you see what you are without the self. Not nothing, but not someone either. Just being. Mindfulness meditation is different. You don't try to stop thoughts. You watch them. Observe without judging. Notice them arising, existing, fading. And in watching, you realize you are not the thoughts. You are the awareness observing the thoughts. The thoughts arise on their own. You don't create them. They appear in consciousness like clouds in the sky. You don't control the clouds. You just watch them pass. This creates distance. The thoughts are no longer you. They're events happening in your awareness. And if they're not you, you don't have to believe them. Obey them. Be controlled by them. This is why meditation helps with anxiety, depression, addiction. You're not fighting thoughts. You're recognizing they're not you. And when they're not you, they lose their power. The voice in your head that says, I'm worthless, isn't you. It's a thought, a pattern, a neural habit. You can watch it arise, acknowledge it, and let it pass without believing it. Meditation doesn't make you think better thoughts. It makes you realize you're not the thinker. You're the space in which thinking happens. And that changes everything. Because if you're not your thoughts, you're not your feelings either. Not your urges, not your fears, not your identity. So, what are you? Meditators say, awareness itself, the screen on which experience plays, not the movie, the screen. And the screen is never damaged by the movie, never changed by what appears on it, always present, always unchanged. You are that, not the person, not the story, not the thoughts or feelings, just the awareness experiencing them. This isn't philosophy. It's direct experience. Thousands of years of contemplatives report it, and now neuroscience confirms it. Turn off the DMN, and the self disappears. What remains is consciousness without self, awareness without an I, and people who experience it say, that's what you always were. The self was always an illusion. Meditation just reveals it. You're not a person meditating. You're awareness, temporarily pretending to be a person, slowly remembering what you really are. The brain can be trained, shaped, restructured, and meditation is the tool. Not to become better, but to see through the illusion, to recognize that the you thought you were never existed. And in that recognition, freedom. Because if there's no self, there's nothing to defend, nothing to fear losing, nothing to protect, just awareness, experiencing, being. And that, meditators say, is all there ever was. You are not your thoughts. You are not yourself. You are the awareness watching both. And awareness doesn't need fixing. It's already complete. Place a mirror in front of a chimpanzee. At first, it thinks there's another chimp. It threatens, displays, investigates. Then something shifts. The chimp realizes, that's me. It starts using the mirror, checking its teeth, grooming hard-to-reach places, inspecting parts of its body it's never seen. This is self-recognition, and it's rare. In the 1970s, psychologist Gordon Gallup developed the mirror test. He'd anesthetize an animal and paint a mark on its face, somewhere it couldn't see without a mirror. Then he'd place it in front of a mirror. Most animals ignore the mark. They don't recognize themselves. They see a stranger with a mark, not themselves. But some animals touch the mark on their own bodies. They know the reflection is them. They have self-awareness. The list is short. Great apes, elephants, dolphins, orcas, magpies, a few others. These animals have something special, a concept of self, an understanding that the body they see is their body, that they are an entity separate from the world. But here's where it gets complicated. Dogs fail the mirror test. Consistently. They see the reflection as another dog. They don't recognize themselves. Does that mean dogs aren't conscious? That they have no inner life? Anyone who's lived with a dog knows that's absurd. Dogs clearly have experiences. They feel joy, fear, excitement, sadness. They dream. They remember. They make decisions. They're conscious. They just don't have that kind of consciousness. The mirror test doesn't measure consciousness. It measures visual self-recognition, a specific cognitive ability, not consciousness itself. Dogs navigate by smell, not sight. Their sense of self might be olfactory, not visual. Put a dog's own scent in an unexpected place, and they investigate. They know, that's my smell, but why is it there? That's self-awareness, just not the kind humans expect. The mirror test reveals our bias. We assume consciousness looks like ours, visual, self-reflective, symbolic. But consciousness might take radically different forms. An octopus has neurons distributed throughout its body. Each arm has a semi-independent nervous system. Does an octopus have one consciousness or 8? Does it have a unified self or a committee of selves? We don't know. We can't know. We can only observe behavior and guess. Bees do a waggle dance to communicate flower locations to their hive. They're encoding abstract information, direction, distance, quality, into symbolic movement. Is that language? Are they conscious? Crows remember human faces for years. They hold grudges. They teach their offspring which humans are dangerous. They have culture, memory, social learning. What is that if not consciousness? Plants respond to threats. They emit chemical signals to warn other plants. They remember stressful events and respond differently to future threats. Is that consciousness? Or just complex chemistry? The question, What is conscious? Might be the wrong question. Maybe it's, how is it conscious? What is the texture, the quality, the shape of their experience? A bat navigates by echolocation. Philosopher Thomas Nagel asked, what is it like to be a bat? We can describe the neurology, but we can't know what it's like. The subjective experience is inaccessible. The same with every animal, every organism, maybe every system. Is the internet conscious? It processes information, responds to inputs, generates outputs. It's vastly more complex than any brain. Does complexity create consciousness? Or does it require something else? Panpsychism suggests consciousness is fundamental, that every particle has a tiny bit of experience. Combine enough particles in the right way, and you get complex consciousness. Humans, animals, maybe plants, maybe rocks. It sounds absurd, but it solves the hard problem. If consciousness is fundamental, you don't have to explain how it emerges from matter. It's already there. Matter is conscious, just at different levels. The mirror test showed us some animals recognize themselves visually. But self-recognition isn't consciousness. It's one type of self-awareness, one cognitive tool. Consciousness might not require a self at all, might not require thought, might not require brains. You can be conscious without knowing you're conscious, without reflecting on your experience, just experiencing. That's what most animals probably have. Raw experience. No self-concept, no introspection, just sight, sound, smell, touch, emotion, action. A constant stream of experience without a narrator explaining it. Is that consciousness? Yes. Just not human consciousness. We're not special. We're just one flavor of consciousness among infinite flavors. Ours includes language, self-reflection, abstract thought. Theirs might include things we can't imagine. The bat's echolocation experience, the octopus's distributed cognition, the bee's hive mind, the mycelial network's chemical communication spanning forests, all conscious, all experiencing, just in ways we can't access, can't imagine, can't test with mirrors. Consciousness isn't binary, it's a spectrum, a space. A multidimensional landscape where every organism occupies a different point. The mirror test maps one tiny corner, visual self-recognition. But the landscape is vast, and we've barely begun exploring it. Dogs are conscious, just not in the way mirrors can detect. Their consciousness is olfactory, social, emotional, present-focused, simpler than ours in some ways, richer in others. Not lesser, just different. And if we can't recognize consciousness in a dog, an animal we've lived with for thousands of years, what hope do we have of recognizing it in truly alien forms? The octopus, the bee, the forest, the planet, the universe. Maybe it's all conscious, just not in ways we've thought to test. The mirror only reflects what it's designed to see. And consciousness is so much more than reflection. In 1982, physicist Roger Penrose had a radical idea. Consciousness isn't just neurons firing, it's quantum mechanics operating in the brain. Most neuroscientists dismissed it. The brain is too warm, too wet, too noisy for quantum effects. Quantum phenomena require near absolute zero temperatures. Isolated systems. The brain is neither. But Penrose persisted. With anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff, he developed the Orchestrated Objective Reduction Theory, ORC-OR, and it's one of the strangest theories in science. The idea: consciousness emerges from quantum processes inside microtubules, tiny protein structures in neurons. These microtubules can maintain quantum states long enough for computation. And when those quantum states collapse, consciousness arises. Each moment of consciousness is a quantum collapse, a wave function collapsing into a definite state. Your experience right now is billions of quantum events resolving simultaneously into a unified present. It sounds like science fiction. But the math works, and recent experiments show quantum effects can persist in biological systems longer than thought possible. Photosynthesis uses quantum coherence. Bird navigation might use quantum entanglement. Maybe brains do too. The theory connects to the observer effect in quantum mechanics. In the famous double-slit experiment, particles behave differently when observed. A particle exists in superposition, all possible states at once, until measured. Then it chooses one state. But what counts as observation? Does it require consciousness, or just measurement by any physical system? Some interpretations suggest consciousness is necessary, that the universe exists in superposition until a conscious observer collapses the wave function into reality. If true, consciousness isn't a byproduct of the universe. It's a fundamental feature, the mechanism by which possibility becomes actuality. The universe observing itself into existence. You're not just in the universe. You're making the universe real by observing it. Every time you look at something, you collapse quantum possibilities into a definite state. You're not passively receiving reality. You're actively creating it, continuously, every moment. This sounds mystical, but it's physics. Quantum mechanics genuinely has an observer problem, and no one has solved it. The Copenhagen interpretation says observation causes collapse, but observation is undefined. Does a camera count? A detector? A bacterium? Where's the line? Penrose argues consciousness is the line. Only conscious observation collapses wave functions. Everything else just creates entanglement, quantum correlations that preserve superposition. If he's right, consciousness is the most important force in the universe. It's what makes reality definite. Without consciousness, the universe would exist in infinite superposition. All possibilities simultaneously. No definite events, no history, no facts. Consciousness creates facts by collapsing possibilities. This also explains why consciousness is so hard to explain. It's not emergent from complexity. It's fundamental, like space, time, mass, charge. You can't reduce it to something else because there's nothing more basic. Trying to explain consciousness from neurons is like trying to explain charge from particle arrangements. You can't. Charge is fundamental. Maybe consciousness is too. Critics argue OR lacks evidence, that quantum effects in neurons are too brief, too unstable, that consciousness is explained just fine by classical neuroscience. But classical neuroscience hasn't explained the hard problem, hasn't explained why there's subjective experience, just how information is processed. Quantum theories at least offer a mechanism, a reason why matter becomes experience. Because experience is what quantum collapse is, possibility becoming actual, potential becoming real. And if consciousness collapses wave functions, then consciousness shapes reality. Your observations aren't passive. They're creative. You're not discovering a pre-existing world. You're participating in its creation. Every observation brings the universe into focus, makes it definite, real. Before you look, things exist in probability clouds. When you look, they solidify, and which possibility solidifies might be influenced by consciousness itself. This gets philosophical fast. If consciousness shapes reality, can you control it? Choose which possibilities collapse? Maybe. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest observer intention matters, that conscious choice influences which outcome manifests. It's not proven, it's controversial, but it's consistent with quantum theory. And it opens the door to something profound. You're not a witness to reality. You're a co-creator. The universe is a collaboration between quantum possibilities and conscious observation. Matter provides the options. Consciousness makes the choices, and reality is the result. This flips everything. You're not a tiny, insignificant consciousness in a vast, unconscious universe. You're the universe becoming conscious of itself, the mechanism by which existence becomes real. Without you, without conscious observers, the universe might not exist, at least not in any definite sense. You're not in the universe. The universe is in you. Arising moment by moment as your consciousness collapses infinite possibilities into this single definite present. Penrose might be wrong. Quantum consciousness might be fantasy. But even if it's wrong, it's asking the right question. What if consciousness isn't created by the universe? What if the universe is created by consciousness? And if consciousness is fundamental, then you're not an accident, not a random arrangement of matter that happened to become aware. You're the universe waking up, looking at itself, knowing itself, creating itself. And that makes you the most important thing in existence. Because without consciousness, existence might not exist at all. The observer isn't separate from the observed. The observer creates the observed, and you are the observer. Reality is what you make of it. Literally, quantum mechanically, fundamentally. You are not in the universe. You are the universe. Observing, collapsing, creating, one quantum moment at a time. Close your eyes and think about your childhood home. Did you see it first, or did you describe it in words? Most people assume thinking happens in language, that little voice narrating your life like a podcast inside your skull. But neuroscience reveals something unsettling. Your inner monologue is not your thoughts. It's the subtitles. Babies think without a single word. They solve problems, recognize faces, feel fear and joy, all before language enters the picture. Animals think, plan, and dream without ever forming a sentence. A dog doesn't think, "I want food" in English or Vietnamese. It experiences want, a raw sensation that exists before words could ever touch it. Even in adults, language is just one layer of a multi-layered mind. When you catch a ball, you don't calculate trajectory in words. When you recognize your mother's face, you don't describe her features before knowing it's her. Visual thinking happens in images, not sentences. Temple Grandin, an autistic scientist, describes thinking entirely in pictures, like playing a movie in her head. Emotional thinking bypasses language entirely. You feel dread before you can name it. You fall in love before you can explain why. Musical thinking operates in patterns and rhythms that words can never capture. Ask a composer how they think a symphony, and they'll struggle to translate it into language. This challenges everything we believe about the mind. If thinking isn't always linguistic, then what is that voice in your head? The answer, the narrator, not the thinker. Your inner monologue is a post hoc commentary, a running transcript of decisions already made deeper in the brain. It's the PR department of your mind, spinning the story after the fact. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis suggests language doesn't just express thoughts, it shapes them. Russian speakers who have separate words for light blue, Goluboy, and dark blue, Sinai, can distinguish shades faster than English speakers. The Piraha tribe in the Amazon has no words for specific numbers beyond 1, 2, many, and they struggle with precise counting. Not because they're less intelligent, but because language carves reality into categories, and without the word, the category is harder to grasp. But here's the twist. If language shapes thought, whose thoughts are you thinking? When you think in English, you're using metaphors, grammar, and concepts inherited from centuries of English speakers. Your self-talk is a dialogue with ghosts. Shakespeare, your parents, your teachers, random strangers whose phrases lodged in your neurons. The Eskimo languages have dozens of words for snow. Vietnamese has layers of pronouns encoding hierarchy and intimacy. Arabic embeds verb tenses that English can't capture. Every language is a different operating system for the mind. So, when you think, "I am sad," are you actually sad? Or did the English language make you conceptualize a complex emotional state as a simple identity statement? In other languages, you might say, "Sadness is visiting me," or "I have sadness," subtly reframing the experience as temporary, external, not you. Language doesn't just describe your inner life, it scripts it. But beneath the words, there's something older, pre-linguistic consciousness, the wordless hum of pure experience, the feeling of sunlight on your skin, the electric jolt of fear, the quiet presence of being before you. Label it I. Meditation teachers call this bare awareness, the mind before language dresses it up. Psychedelics often dissolve language entirely, leaving users struggling to describe an experience that felt more real than anything words could touch. The conclusion is haunting. That inner voice you trust as your thoughts, it's not the author of your mind, it's the translator. And like all translations, something essential is always lost. You are not your words. You are the silence beneath them, the vast, wordless intelligence that already knows before you can speak it. After 100 years of neuroscience, millions of brain scans, and thousands of studies, we still have no idea what consciousness is. We can map every neuron. We can predict behavior. We can even read thoughts from brain activity. But we cannot explain why any of this feels like something. This is the most profound failure in the history of science. We've split the atom, decoded DNA, photographed black holes. Yet the thing closest to us, the thing we are, remains a complete mystery. Why? Because consciousness doesn't fit the rules. You can't measure it, weigh it, or bottle it. A brain surgeon can open your skull and touch every millimeter of your cortex, but they will never find a single thought. No scalpel has ever cut into sadness. No microscope has ever seen the color red. Neuroscience can tell you where activity happens when you see red, but it cannot tell you why that activity produces the subjective experience of redness instead of, say, a smell or a sound or nothing at all. This is called the hard problem of consciousness, coined by philosopher David Chalmers. And after decades of research, it remains unsolved. Theories abound. None are proven. All are controversial. Integrated Information Theory, IIT, by Giulio Tononi, suggests consciousness is a property of systems that integrate information in complex ways. The more integrated, the more conscious. By this logic, your brain is highly conscious. A thermostat? Slightly conscious. A rock? Basically zero. It's elegant, mathematical, and implies that consciousness is everywhere, just in different degrees. Panpsychism. the idea that even electrons have a faint glimmer of experience. But critics ask, if consciousness is just information integration, why does my brain feel like me? Why isn't there some universal mega-consciousness experiencing everything at once? Global Workspace Theory, GWT, by Bernard Baars takes a different approach. Consciousness is a broadcast system. Information competes for access to a global workspace in the brain, the prefrontal cortex, and whatever wins gets broadcast to the rest of the brain. That broadcast is what you experience as consciousness. It explains why you can only focus on one thing at a time, why multitasking is a myth, why attention is limited. But it doesn't explain why the broadcast feels like anything. A computer broadcasts information across circuits. Is it conscious? Higher order thought, HOT. Theory says you're only conscious of something when you have a thought about that thought. First order thought, I see a tree. Second order thought, I am aware that I see a tree. Only the second one is conscious. This explains why you can drive home on autopilot without remembering the drive. You saw the road, first order, but you didn't think about seeing it, no second order. But it raises a terrifying question. How much of your life do you experience without ever being conscious of it? Then there's the wild card, quantum consciousness, proposed by physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff. They suggest consciousness arises from quantum processes inside microtubules, tiny structures in neurons. In quantum mechanics, particles exist in multiple states until observed, at which point they collapse into one. Penrose asks, what if consciousness is the observer? What if your awareness is literally collapsing quantum possibilities into reality every microsecond? It's bold, controversial, and most neuroscientists dismiss it. But no one has disproven it. And if it's true, consciousness isn't a byproduct of the brain. It's a fundamental force of the universe, like gravity or electromagnetism. But here's the kicker. Maybe consciousness can't be explained. Not because science isn't advanced enough, but because explaining consciousness requires stepping outside consciousness. And that's logically impossible. A camera can't photograph itself. A knife can't cut itself. An eye can't see itself seeing. You are trying to use consciousness to understand consciousness. The subject and the object are the same thing. This is why mystics, meditators, and psychonauts often say, you can't think your way to understanding consciousness. You have to experience it directly, beyond thought, beyond self, beyond language. Science can map the brain, but it cannot map what it is like to be you. Some philosophers argue consciousness might be the hard limit of human knowledge, the one question we are forever locked out of answering, because we are trapped inside the very thing we're trying to explain. Others believe the answer is coming. New brain imaging, AI models of neural networks, experiments with psychedelics under controlled conditions. Maybe, just maybe, the breakthrough is close. But for now, after 30 strange phenomena, after peeling back every layer of the self, reality, and control, the final answer is silence. We don't know. So here we are, at the end of 30 unsettling phenomena. Your sense of self, an illusion, reality, a hallucination, free will, a myth, and consciousness, the one thing you're certain exists, remains the greatest mystery in the universe. But here's the twist. None of this makes you less real. You are the universe looking at itself, asking why. You are matter that woke up. You are 86 billion neurons creating experience out of electricity and darkness. Science doesn't know how. Philosophy can't explain it. The illusion is real. The mystery remains. And you, impossibly, are here to witness it.